When Dan Ketch Ghostrider comes to New Orleans to meet John Blaze, he becomes an unfortunate victim of Marvel's version of the Xenomorphs, also called the Brood. This alien race of homicidal parasitic bugs wants to take over the world. So what happens when the spirit of vengeance becomes possessed by the Brood? Well, the story was explored in 3 different comic book issues, starting with Ghostrider and X-Men issue 26. So without further ado, let's explore the 3 issues, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Broken Pieces of Peace. Well, the story begins in New Orleans, where the Mardi Gras festival was on in full swing and more. We meet Bernard LeBranche, someone who loves Mardi Gras, but not because it brings fun and frolic, but because the festival is great for his profession. You see, he's a thief, but not some ordinary thief. This guy belongs to the Thieves Guild. Before I go further into the story, let me give you a bit of background about the Thieves Guild and their rivals, Assassin's Guild. Now, if you're an X-Men fan by any chance, you're bound to know Gambit and his connection with these 2 guilds. This super cool Western mutant also appears in the story we are discussing. So abandoned at birth due to his unique red eyes, Remy LeBeau, aka Gambit, was immediately intriguing. His condition led to his nickname, Le Diable Blanc, or White Devil, by the New Orleans Thieves Guild. They believed he was the prophesied child destined to unite the city's feuding guilds of thieves and assassins. Kidnapped from the hospital by the guild, Remy was raised by a bunch of thieves who taught him their craft. At 10 years old, Remy's life changed forever when he tried to pickpocket Jean-Luc LeBeau, the ringleader of the Thieves Guild. LeBeau recognized his potential and adopted Remy, bringing him into his family. During his childhood, Remy met Belladonna Bordeaux, the granddaughter of the Assassin's Guild head, and this became the beginning of a relationship that would change the lives of everyone involved. Despite their family's rivalry, Remy and Belladonna grew close and fell in love. To solidify peace between the Thieves Guild and the Assassin's Guild, a marriage between Gambit and Belladonna Bordeaux was arranged. But Belladonna's brother Julian opposed the union and challenged the Gambit to a duel. Gambit killed Julian in self-defense and was subsequently excommunicated and banished from New Orleans to preserve peace. Realizing Belladonna would not be happy with him in exile, he ended their relationship. However, peace prevailed between the Thieves Guild and the Assassin's Guild. I hope everything is clear. Now, let's explore our initial story. So yeah, Bernard is a member of the Thieves Guild. On this particular night, he was examining the necklace he had stolen when his attention was attracted by this newspaper headline, which reported the death of 11 members of the Thieves Guild, the last one taking place at the French Quarter. Clearly, it seems that the peace with the Assassin's Guild has finally come to an end, and he wonders when all this killing would come to a stop. But he leaves the newspaper when he notices someone moving on the balcony. Who could it be? He charges his fists with some kind of power before approaching the intruder, a black figure with sharp claws. The intruder calls themselves an assassin, of course from the guild. Bernard, in self-defense, attacks the assassin with a blast of energy, but misses his mark. This was a window of opportunity for the dark assassin to dig their claws into Bernard before pushing him off the balcony, killing him on the spot. Once the deed was done, the assassin laughed at the newspaper because he knew that now the death count had risen up to 12. He states that he is one step closer to wiping out Clan LeBeau and avenging Clan Bordeaux. X-Men and the Spirit of Vengeance. Meanwhile, somewhere else in New Orleans, Ghostrider Dan Ketch learns that a serial killer is on the loose. He does not like the fact that wherever he goes, death, destruction, and blood follow him like old buddies trying to catch up with him. However, he is low-key content that because of Mardi Gras, he can move in his fiery form without catching much attention from humans. I mean, someone kinda praises his attire. You know, the skull on fire and all that. That's pretty cool stuff for Mardi Gras or Halloween. But he cannot help but wonder if he is a demon or something else entirely. Then, there's this fragment of humanity left within him, which makes him wonder, is this humanity a result of a psychic connection that he had with Dan Ketch, his human host? Speaking of Dan, the guy had been mortally wounded not long ago, and Ghostrider needs to find Johnny Blaze, the ex-Ghostrider, who happens to be the only person who could possibly help him. Johnny is clearly in New Orleans, and Ghostrider needs to find him before it's too late, before Dan dies for good, which would only mean that our dear Ghostrider would lose all humanity, and maybe he would also stop being humane. Meanwhile, the X-Men, namely Jubilee, Psylocke, Cyclops, Beast, Wolverine, and Gambit also arrive in New Orleans. You see, Gambit got to know about the deaths of his friends from the Thieves Guild, and he wants to bring back the peace and stop the damned murderers using any means necessary. Also, his wife Belladonna and Rogue were conducting their own investigation into the murders in the streets of New Orleans. Interesting that two of Gambit's women were working together. I'm sure this guy has a really awesome nightlife, if you know what I mean. On the other hand, Ghostrider arrives, and this super desolate part of the city, he says that no one dares to visit these parts of the city, not tourists and not even the cops. It is as if the whole place has been forgotten by the city. Anyway, here he seeks rest in an old forgotten church. His brief pause is shattered by a scream and a dark figure crashing through a window. Once again, this dark figure was fighting with a Thieves Guild member, more like overpowering the thief. Nevertheless, the assailant, who happens to be another member of the Assassin's Guild, taunts the Thieves Guild member to reveal any special powers before finally killing him. Almost in the next moment, a woman comes out, screaming about her husband's murder. The assassin senses that she is pregnant with a Thieves Guild child, and for this crime, she cannot be allowed to live. Ghostrider tries his best but fails to save her in time. Angry at what he had just witnessed, he attacks the assassin with his chain as the killer savors the woman's blood on his fingers, swearing vengeance, for he is a spirit of vengeance. Ghostrider grapples with his vow against taking human life and questions if the assassin is truly human. The assassin, however, remains unfazed and tells Ghostrider that he has no interest in fighting someone who is not a member of the Thieves Guild. Next thing we know, he escapes into the church and slams shut the church door. But our hero Ghostrider pursues, determined to confront the threat. Brood 1, everyone else 0. Ghostrider follows the assassin into the church and discovers a stairway leading downward. At the bottom, he is met not by one, but a group of adversaries. They're dressed in black, with black masks and purple cloaks, their heads topped with green hair. Sensing Ghostrider's power, they consult their mistress, hidden in the shadows, who tells her brood that she wants him, that his power would serve them well. The group tells the mistress that they would need to reveal their true form and nature to capture Ghostrider because he is too strong. She allows the same, and they all transform into the brood, revealing their true monstrous forms, and attempt to subdue Ghostrider with their innumerable tentacles, teeth, and claws. Despite his efforts to resist, he's eventually overwhelmed and restrained. The brood queen steps forward and reveals that she wants to implant an egg in him. Clearly, things do not seem good for Ghostrider. For our new viewers, you can check out our origin video on the brood. For now, the brood are basically a parasitic alien race that implant you with their eggs, after which your mind and body are taken over. That's why we call them Marvel's version of the Xenos. But, unlike the biomechanical monsters from Ridley Scott's 1979 film, these guys are not mindless. They are tactical and intelligent, at least for space bugs. They are pretty darn smart. Meanwhile, the X-Men catch up with Rogue and Belladonna, exchange notes, etc. Soon, they track down the church where Ghostrider has just been attacked. While Cyclops is ready to lead, Gambit insists on taking charge in his city alongside Belladonna. As they approach the church, Gambit recognizes the victim, Jean-Martin and Michelle from his guild, the couple who had just been slain. Gambit feels a heavy guilt for not being there to prevent the tragedy. But what could he have done? It is not really his fault, but he still takes the blame and pledges to take revenge, the only thing he can now do. The team enter the church, and Logan immediately detects a familiar scent. Inside, they encounter the Brood. Cyclops briefs the less familiar X-Men about the alien parasites. It becomes clear that the Brood have taken over the Assassin's Guild. Bella is devastated after realizing that her clan members are beyond saving, especially since Logan confirms that their only option is to eliminate them. The X-Men initially handle the confrontation well, but the situation escalates when Gambit is suddenly hit by a powerful blast from Ghostrider, who now sports Brood tentacles. So yeah, he has been taken over by the Brood. So what comes next? Well, this is where issue 26 of the Ghostrider and X-Men comes to an end, but the story continues in Wolverine vs. Ghostrider issue 9 before concluding in Ghostrider and X-Men issue 27. So, let's explore these. Wolverine vs. Ghostrider issue 9. The X-Men's Blue Team and Belladonna witness Ghostrider's transformation into a brood after an egg is implanted in him. The Brood Queen reveals her plan wasn't to confront the X-Men so soon, but the capture of the Thieves and the Assassin's Guild's children had been disrupted. Despite losses, she claims Ghostrider's mystical nature compensates well. As Wolverine vows to eliminate the Brood threat no matter what, Brood Slaymasters drop from the ceiling and attack the team. Gambit tries to shield Bella and suggests she stays behind him, but Bella insists she can fend for herself and demonstrates by taking down a Slaymaster with her plasma blast. Cyclops calls for teamwork and urges the X-Men to rally and target the invaders. Psylocke expresses concern for Jubilee's whereabouts just as Ghostrider moves to attack her. However, Beast intervenes to save Jubilee and tackles Ghostrider while continuing his typical chatter. Wolverine, frustrated with battling lower ranks, decides to confront the Queen directly. Cyclops cautions him about the building's stability under the stress of their fight, but instead of the building collapsing, the floor gives way, plunging the X-Men into an underground labyrinth beneath New Orleans. Gambit and Belladonna end up together in the labyrinth. Bella initially thinks Gambit is dead, but discovers he's still alive and confronts him about leaving her on their wedding night. Gambit explains he left because he didn't want Bella to abandon her life in New Orleans for him, despite knowing she would have joined him in exile. Bella understands, having known he killed her brother in self-defense. Gambit apologizes and they embrace, reconciling their past. Meanwhile, Wolverine and Beast engage the Brood-possessed Ghostrider. Beast tries to convince Wolverine not to kill Ghostrider, and points out that the possession isn't complete since they can still hear Dan Ketch's essence struggling against the Brood inside. Ghostrider, battling internally, flees. Wolverine pursues him, intent on tracking him down, while Beast stays behind to work on a way to save Ghostrider from the Brood's influence. In another part of the tunnels, Cyclops helps Psylocke out of a hole she's fallen into. When she questions his intentions, given they're alone, Cyclops, flustered, insists that they just focus on reuniting with the others and leads the way. Elsewhere, Jubilee recovers from a fall that she survived by landing on a deceased Brood soldier. While exploring through the eerie tunnels, she stumbles upon a chamber where several members of the Thieves Guild are trapped in containment pods, set for later assimilation by the Brood. As Jubilee assesses the situation, Rogue unexpectedly joins her, which definitely startles her. Rogue immediately sets to work, freeing the Thieves Guild members. One of the freedmen emphasizes the urgency of rescuing the children of the Warning Guilds, whom the Brood are targeting. However, his warning is cut short when Rogue turns to find the Brood-possessed Ghostrider and his minions ready to strike. Cyclops and Psylocke are nearby when they hear a scream. Suddenly, Rogue, Jubilee, the Brood soldiers, and the possessed Ghostrider crash through the wall. Cyclops quickly takes down Ghostrider while Psylocke shields Jubilee from the attacking Brood soldiers. Ghostrider, under Brood control, tells Cyclops they're targeting the children of the Warning Guilds due to their unique generational programming, which the Brood are exploiting, not orchestrating. As Ghostrider is about to reveal more, Gambit interrupts and throws a charged card that knocks Ghostrider down, which ensures that the Guild's secrets are safe. Gambit demands to know the children's whereabouts, but Ghostrider refuses to divulge anything. Belladonna, using powers she acquired by accident, restrains Ghostrider. Psylocke detects a different presence within Ghostrider's mind and uses her Psy knife to enter his mind on an astral plane, hoping to find and possibly free the real Ghostrider. X-Men, issue 27. Once again, while navigating the catacombs beneath New Orleans, the X-Men and Ghostrider push through the tunnels clogged with Brood residue. Logan's sharp senses hint they are nearing the Brood Queen. Gambit was fueled by a desire to avenge Belladonna's death. Oh yes, that happened. However, he is reminded by Cyclops that their primary mission is rescuing the Guild's children. Upon entering a large chamber strewn with bones and gravestones, they hear a cry for help. Cyclops instructs Logan and Ghostrider to cover the flanks, while the rest maintain a tight formation to guard against ambushes. They find a group of children trapped in organic pods along a corridor. The team work to free them, with Cyclops keeping watch for any threats. As Ghostrider strides off purposefully, Gambit inquires about his direction. Ghostrider replies that he headed towards the Brood Queen, driven by his path of vengeance. Gambit, thinking of his late wife, decides to join him. Logan catches on to their plan and tells Cyclops he will go with them, advising the others to escort the children to safety. As the trio advances, Gambit curiously asks about Ghostrider's bike, to which he responds that he can summon it if needed. Wolverine checks on Ghostrider's condition, acknowledging the difficulty of fighting off a brood implantation. Ghostrider, however, is more concerned with how the ordeal has affected his human host. Dan Ketch is surrounded by falling mirror shards, each reflecting images of X-Men and the Brood. Among them, he sees Ghostrider and remembers being controlled by a Brood implant until Psylocke and Belladonna helped free him. Now, only Ghostrider's essence remains. Dan realizes he is supposed to be dead and starts walking toward a light at the end of the darkness. However, Ghostrider senses him and reassures Dan that there's still hope for his survival. Meanwhile, outside New Orleans, the Quinton Carnival heads north. John Blaze, the carnival's owner, is monitoring the procession on his bike when one of the carnival cars pulls up beside him. Inside is Calar and Clairvoyant, who tells Blaze about a vision concerning a friend in need located in the French Quarter of New Orleans. John Blaze sets off from New Orleans immediately to find his friend. Logan senses trouble and readies his claws. Ghostrider swings his chain and Gambit preps his cards. The Brood hold back, creating a tense standoff. Then, a Brood-transformed assassin emerges, a figure from Gambit's past. He admits to killing members of the Thieves Clan against the Brood Queen's orders, who had intended to use them as hatchlings. Now, he plans to offer Gambit, Wolverine, and Ghostrider to the Brood Queen as compensation. This triggers an attack from the assassin and a horde of Brood. In another section of the catacombs, the rest of the X-Men encounter Brood forces. Jubilee stays back to guard the rescued children, while the others engage the enemy. Amidst the chaos, Beast spots Ghostrider's bike speeding deeper into the complex. Gambit, Ghostrider, and Wolverine manage to defeat all their Brood attackers, except for the assassin who attempts to flee. Logan is ready to go after him, but Gambit insists they let him go because they face a greater threat, the Brood Queen. She appears furious at the loss of her Brood children and vows revenge by targeting the guild's children before dealing with the heroes. The trio hurries after her, hoping Cyclops and the rest of the X-Men can stall her. Meanwhile, Psylocke, Rogue, Beast, and Cyclops have just finished off a group of Brood. Exhausted, they brace themselves as the Brood Queen arrives to carry out her threat. Just then, Ghostrider swoops in on his bike, catching the Queen by the neck with his chain, and drags her back through the catacombs to the surface. The Brood Queen mocks Ghostrider, questioning how he plans to fight her alone. She tempts him with another egg implant, promising him more power. As the implant spikes near, Ghostrider seizes it and implants the Queen in the head. He then begins to tear away her Brood exterior. By the time the rest of the X-Men emerge from the catacombs, all that's left of the Brood Queen is her bare skeleton. The Brood Queen gets up to attack again, but Ghostrider knocks her down. At that moment, John Blaze arrives, joking about missing the action. Ghostrider tries to update him on his human host situation, but they are interrupted as the Brood Queen attacks again. Ghostrider loops his chain around her neck and signals Blaze to use his Hellfire gun. Together, they decapitate her. Logan then removes an eye from the severed head and tosses it into the air, where Gambit blasts it with a charged card. Cyclops finishes off the remains of the body, for once agreeing with Wolverine's aggressive tactics. After the battle, the X-Men part ways with Ghostrider. Gambit expresses his gratitude for avenging Belladonna and promises to repay Ghostrider someday. As Blaze and Ghostrider ride off, they discuss Dan Ketch's situation. Cyclops remarks on the tragic end of the guild feud, but Gambit insists it won't be over until they find the traitor in both clans. Meanwhile, the half-transformed assassin, watching from a nearby roof, vows revenge against Gambit, the X-Men, and Ghostrider. Unfortunately, the arc of this half-transformed assassin was never touched upon again, and we will never know what became of him. However, the story proves just how nefarious the Brood can be. Much like Xenomorphs, the Broods also save their victims for later impregnation or implantation, and when the transformation is complete, the host loses all sense and sensibilities as the Brood mind takes over. Additionally, they have super advanced strength and power. So yeah, it is safe to say that the Brood are Marvel's version of Xenomorphs. Interestingly, Marvel now owns the rights to Xenomorphs as well. Well, we might just get a story where the Brood and the Xenos clash with each other. Would you enjoy it? I'm intrigued to know. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.